Hello folks, my name is Saad Ali. I'm a software engineer here at Google, and I'm joined here by Mace. Mace is an SRE on the GKE team.
That's right.
Mace, can you explain what an SRE is?
So SRE stands for Site Reliability Engineer, and the main difference between me and any other software engineer is that I have more of a focus on reliability, scalability, and just general efficiency of the running of the thing that I'm owning, which is GKE.
So what does that mean when you own GKE? Are you responsible for running it? What do you do for customers?
Sure, so the idea is that we set SLOs, which are service level objectives, which are measurements of how reliable we want the running service to be. And my job is to do any kind of engineering really that's required to make sure that we're meeting those goals.
Got it. So how does this differ from a traditional kind of DevOps role?
So I think that there's a lot of interplay between DevOps and SRE. They're fairly tightly coupled.
Okay. And in terms of some of the challenges that you see in your day-to-day job, what are they? Can you talk about that?
Sure. So I think that one of the big challenges for GKE, which is a massive hosted Kubernetes system, is really just the diversity of use cases. We run a 5-digit number of clusters, and every user has slightly different needs and slightly different configurations, so we're constantly seeing new challenges crop up.
That's awesome. So how do you actually deal with them? Are there best practices? Do you have any suggestions for customers, or do you take care of most of the pain for them?
So we try to take care of anything that's on the platform level and anything that is really internal, so that anything that a user can't take action to fix is super frustrating for them, and we don't want them to have to deal with that. But in general, the philosophy of SRE is to reduce the time to mitigate a broken system. So we may not have a perfect fix or perfectly understand the problem, but our goal is always to make the user able to use their system again fast, and then figure it out after the fact with postmortems.
What happened, and make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Exactly, and wherever possible to build systems to do that and build it into the code, rather than relying on humans to come in and fix something.
Very cool. And so when we were talking off camera, you were mentioning some really interesting design patterns that SRE deals with. Could you talk about that?
Sure. So one of the challenges in hosting a massive deployment of Kubernetes clusters, which I talked a little bit about earlier, is that the traditional SRE model for a hyper-scalable system is to build a multi-tenant system. And what that means is that all of your query flow and user action is flowing through a single binary or a single replicated set of binaries. Now, a more traditional monolith for a single user is what we call a single tenant system. So for example, an Oracle database. It has one user and it's completely specified for that user, and it's been tweaked and perfected for exactly their use case, but it's really only useful to one person at once. The challenge in hosting these Kubernetes clusters is that every single Kubernetes cluster is, in its own way, from my point of view, a single tenant system. You know, this system belongs to one user, this system belongs to a different customer. They don't have any interaction with each other, and as an operator, I can't really treat them as a monolith. So we're trying to develop some new operations patterns for how we deal with that and keep them all running when they're so different from one another, and that's what we've been starting to call multi-single tenant systems.
Got it. Is this a pattern that customers could potentially apply in their own systems?
Absolutely. Whenever you have a customer who is building something that has many separate users, pipeline or shop deployment or anything along those lines, there are very similar patterns to keep in mind.
And it definitely helps with scalability of their solutions.
For sure. I think one of the key principles that we're starting to come up with is really that automation is king, and that monitoring and trying to make sure that you can have some equivalent monitoring between each of your single tenant systems, because it doesn't matter whether you are using your Kubernetes cluster to host a machine learning pipeline and I'm using mine to host a YouTube front page. Both of us have a control plane that has uptime, and it's meaningful to measure control plane uptime, and I can compare our two clusters with that.
That's super interesting. Let's take a step back and talk about a little bit about your background and how you got into SRE.
So I joined Google in 2012 as a new graduate with a maths and CS degree, and I went straight into the Google Ads SRE team.
Okay.
Kind of learned everything I know.
Did you know that you wanted to be in SRE?
Not at all. I had offers from 3 separate teams, and one of them was an SRE, and I went to some of my friends at Google and I said, "What's an SRE?" And they said, "Well, they wear leather jackets and they swear a lot and they're always really on the go and stressed out. I'm like, that sounds great. Sign me up.
Oh man, and it seems like you've enjoyed it since.
Yeah, I'm having great fun.
What do you recommend for new grads who are trying to follow a similar journey? What should they look into, and what are the kind of things that can help them determine whether to follow the SRE path or a different path?
Well, one of the things that they might want to have a look at is the SRE book. We recently came out with the SRE workbook, and I actually have a write-up of one of the big GKE outages in that workbook if people are curious. And another thing is just try spinning up some systems and try breaking them. Don't just try to make them work, try to break them and figure out how they break. And if that's interesting to you, then this might be an area to pursue.
Yeah, I think there might be a lot of folks out there that are interested in that, so thank you for that. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about KubeCon. This is your first KubeCon.
Yeah.
What are your impressions?
It's huge.
Yes, it is.
It's really, really big. I was a little surprised about the gender diversity here. My SRE team is about half women, which is a little bit unusual, but I was not expecting it to be quite as masculine as it is here. Yeah.
What can we do to improve that?
I mean, I think that it's really a question of looking at how the community treats various people. I know that in the past I've had some challenges with a very feminine name in open source, getting code reviews. It feels like you get a bit more pushback. But also just one of the things that I did notice that KubeCon is working on is having technical women on stage, right? All of the keynotes have had a huge number of really impressive women like Janet and Liz, and that's something I super appreciate.
That is awesome. And finally, let's wrap up with what are you looking forward to most at KubeCon? Is there a talk or something, whatever?
Honestly, I'm looking forward to talking to other people who are using Kubernetes in ways that we're not. Right? I feel like that's what I get the most out of is one-to-one conversations, figuring out where people's pain points are, how they're different from mine, because I have a bit of a weird perspective on Kubernetes. I don't use Kubernetes, I run Kubernetes, right? So it's a bit of a...
And if we can figure out how customers are using it in ways that we don't expect, we can make it more robust and reliable over time.
That's the idea.
And that is the role of SRE. Thank you very much, Macy.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure talking to you.
Likewise.